Hey friends, this is Joseph Maynor. So what I want to do in this video is I want to talk about kind of what to do in this work regarding narratives and how to both engage with narratives and also step away from narratives. So there's a both and not even here. Because this idea that you're in control of this, like it's like a linear process, is not the way things work out if you're anything like me. But how do you not throw the baby out with the bathwater too? Regarding self-help, right? Or what George Carlin would call help. He said if it was self-help, you'd be able to do it. You wouldn't need it, right, from anybody else. But because you need it from somebody else, that's not self-help, that's help. I might be wrong in how I'm paraphrasing that, but probably am, but it's still kind of funny. But the issue in this video is be careful not to give up the finite perspective of you. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's still a place for life coaching. There's still a place for human self-help. But it doesn't have to be like it can resonate with people who are enlightened just as much as it resonates with Stage Orange people, right? Does this mean that you're going to become Tony Robbins? Probably not. But if that's your strength, maybe, right? But your karma is probably different than that because everybody has a different signature as to how their life is going. So I guess what I'm trying to capture in this video is how do we teach self-help in a universal way? Just like we might teach chess in a universal way. Or even a game like Minecraft. Could you teach that in a universal way? Are there some principles to Minecraft or chess or music making, if you're an instrumentalist, like a guitar player or a trumpet player, whatever it may be, whatever genre of music creation you're in, or artistic creation. Maybe you're a rapper. Some rappers are insanely talented with how they construct stories on the fly. It's like spontaneous poetry. It's amazing to see. So people have talents all over the place, right? What's easy for you is hard for somebody else. Right? There's somebody in the world who created the best French fries, just like there's somebody in the world who created the best X, Y, or Z. And also realize this too. Be careful about focusing on being the best. Maybe being the worst is also okay. Have you ever played chess and you just lose all the time? You can't, right? Like you can figure out a way to play chess where you lose all the time. I'll tell you another way. You can figure out how to play music and lose all the time. There's a way for like a better musician to embarrass a less better musician. Like, okay, let's modulate up half a step, right? And not tell you. And now you don't know what the fuck's going on. You look like a fool on the bandstand. So there's like, we know that ego is involved in everything, including spiritual enlightenment. Like, I'm better than you at spiritual enlightenment, right? From a finite perspective, that could be the case. But nobody can do me doing chess, or me doing music, or me doing spiritual enlightenment, or me doing self-help, or me doing philosophy. To me, you're just a voice in the wilderness, right? You're another thing to consider. But primarily, I'm focused on being me as consciousness. And I'm also focused on, to a lesser extent, but still somewhat, on the finite perspective of me and how that shows up in the world. I'm focused on both, actually. And I assume you are too. I don't assume that you're just like an image to me, you know. Otherwise, why am I wasting my time doing this? I might as well be working to become a billionaire or something like that. That's worthwhile, quote unquote. That way I can use money to avoid all of my problems, as if that would work. And as if I would have any choice in that matter. So it's interesting how our fantasies and love for drama really capture us. Have you noticed that? Like what we're attached to is fantasy and drama. We lose ourselves there. We love that. And you know what? You got to realize that that's not bad. That's good. It's entertainment. People wouldn't go to Las Vegas if they didn't value entertainment. Why do you think all those casinos are so wealthy? Because people value entertainment. Entertainment is the fundamental business model in Las Vegas. Just like real estate is the fundamental business model for fast food places. It's the real estate that they own that's actually worth the money. I didn't realize this, like McDonald's is actually in the real estate business, not so much in the food business. The food business is just a secondary issue, and they can franchise that out. So it's really the real estate business that McDonald's is in. But you have to understand, you know, finances and law and stuff like that to really dig deep into that. But you could dig just as deep into Aristotle's philosophy or spiritual enlightenment or romantic relation even, or comedy. What's funny, when I was flying back from Vegas, I was sitting next to a guy. He told me, he's like, "Where are you from?" I said, "San Francisco." He said, "Oh, I don't know about San Francisco. I know about Milpitas." And I thought to myself, this guy's fucking funny. You know what I'm saying? Milpitas, get the fuck out of here, right? But I gave that nod to him. I was like, yep, you got it, man. That's smart from a comedy standpoint, right? Because you can mispronounce that in a way that sounds really funny. I'll leave that for you to do. But also with chess. Okay, take chess. Some people hate chess with a passion. Some people hate like creative mode in Minecraft. Like I'm one of the people who hate creative mode in Minecraft. I'm like, I just want to be powerful and get the elytra and get all the goodies and have all the armor and the fortress and beat everybody, right? And that's exactly how I am in chess. So in chess, I don't like classical chess. I don't like long, drawn out, quiet games. I like the King's Gambit, accepted. I like the Smith-Morra Gambit. I like the quick, crushing, aggressive, conquering. But that's just me, right? That's my taste. I like heavy rock. I don't really like classical music very much, although I've dabbled in it in the past. I like jazz. I come in and out of jazz, but I think more often than not, I think I'm a heavy rock guy, right? Even though I play trumpet. And I would like to say that I practice this stuff more than I do. That's the thing. And one of the things that I want to do, and I want this video to be a kind of primer for, is this year I do want to prepare everybody for New Year's. I do kind of believe in the New Year's resolution thing, and to the extent that like it brings everybody together in a self-help point, right? And then what comes after that is usually a disappointment. But that's why I realize it's actually better to think more in advance of New Year than to start on New Year. So you have to be somewhat in advance of New Year. So what I hope to do is take it more easy this year, but also focus on results. Because one of the things I noticed is that talk is one thing, but ticking off the item on a checklist is another thing. Like, you know, you can talk all you want about chess. That doesn't mean that you're a 1400 or 1500 or 1600 ELO or ELO. That's determined in experience. That's not determined in the imagination. So I think one of the things I want you guys to, it's kind of a theme of this video. I may title this video in light of this. But if there's anything that's the devil, it's drama and fantasy. Because it's drama and fantasy that allow us to be without showing up in the world. We get to show up in some kind of a shadow world. And then our ego can get way out of control, where we start spouting off all these things and making all these plans that never come into fruition. But then we're like the crazy guy who's like on the street, you know, telling everybody else what's what. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's a bad mode of being. But your ego wants the best for itself on some level too, and that can't be entirely bad. So I think that we're led to believe in spirituality somewhat wrongly, that identifying with the finite perspective is wrong or bad. And I would say that's not entirely true. But there are ways to identify with the finite perspective that does lead to very predictable kinds of problems, like action faking, as MJ DeMarco talks about, how you spend your whole life wanting to be better, but you never actually took a step. It's like, I want to be good at chess, but you never practice chess or you never play chess. And this is actually okay, because on some level, you enjoyed your life. I mean, you still had the experience of being and the experience of awareness. And because success is relative, you're not really like measured up against anybody from an absolute perspective. But I mean, on some level though, you do care about your experience, don't you? Don't you care about lifestyle? Don't you care about like if I could do something to solve a problem that would reduce suffering for myself and for others, and I could take that action and be motivated to take that action, it seems like that would be something that I would want to do. But that's a hypothetical. That's a thought, see? Until you actually do it, it doesn't become a concrete event. So I think that this is really a conflict between the masculine and the feminine, right? The masculine is the talker. The liar, right, is the masculine, believe it or not. Language, thought. The feminine is about being. It's about what exists. So it's like, did you do it? Like you've told me 5 years in a row that you're going to run a marathon, or you're going to create an album or write a book, but did you do it? Was that actually part of reality? No, it was part of the mind. And this is why the mind loses credibility with the feminine. And taken to its extreme, it becomes a shadow problem, actually, on the path. Where we get into this kind of thing where it's like the mind is bad, the mind is ego, you've got to detach from the mind. Look, if you were detached from the mind, you wouldn't be talking. You'd be like a cat, just like, you know. But even a cat is not detached from the mind, because the cat has an ego just like every other thing that's here has ego. Or else it wouldn't be here. So every finite perspective is confused on some level and partial. The question is, can you realize that about yourself? And can you have that kind of humility and patience that comes from that? Especially when you're teaching self-help or life coaching. And realizing, every perspective has a different need, has a different strength, has a different value. So, you know what I'm going to do in the second part of this video? I'm going to take a break. In the second part of this video, I'm going to give you some lessons learned to kind of like drive it home in a more practical way from doing this for over 10 years now. So I just turned 47 years old. I started doing this work in 2014 pretty seriously. So that's roughly 10, 11 years ago. So I was about 38 when I started really heavily focusing on this work. So I have 10 years now to kind of reflect on the practical stuff in light of the more philosophical stuff. And how can we this is the kind of the issue or the question for all of us. Like, how can we reframe self-help in light of coming from a much more higher consciousness perspective? Okay, friends, so just give me 1 second and we'll come back and we'll address this. All right, friends, welcome back. So let's start out with a couple of premises that I think probably most of us would accept at this point, from like a higher consciousness perspective. So I say number one, like nothing that has happened for you experientially has been a waste. You may have devalued it, right, in the moment, but you didn't realize that all of experience is what makes you, and what makes the consciousness. You've taken intellectual positions against experience. This is good, this is bad, I never want to have this happen again. This person is evil, this person's the devil. Okay, yeah, and you can see why people have a problem with fantasy and drama. Because it takes the attention away from experience being okay as it is, or reality being okay as it is. Instead of a focus on truth, we're focused on the imagination. We're sort of numbing ourselves. But then, is this numbing also reality? We might call it chaos, or low consciousness, or being emotionally out of control or confused. I mean, this is the feminine, right? All the things that the masculine doesn't want to let in, because the masculine wants understanding and control. So it gets deep. I think one clear tactic, if you will, is to realize if it's here, it's good. So if you look at your whole life, if it's something that's shown up in experience, then it's okay to be here. And that's one way to correct against this fantasizing of the masculine to want to hierarchize experience. But then also realize too that hierarchizing experience is exactly what samsara is. And if you're identified in any way with the human, on some level you're going to be attached to hierarchization of winners and losers, good and bad, true and false. And so that this is here as well. And so the question is, it's not a question of like human or divine. It's a question of marriage with a capital M. How do we marry the absolute perspective with you as a finite perspective? Can these exist in a marriage? Not a human marriage, not even a divine marriage, but an idealized marriage. And this is a way that thought can actually serve experience. Because if you can allow the absolute and the relative to be here simultaneously, then, and really allow that, then I think that you can work on both simultaneously. And this is I would imagine like some people are better at this than others. And so I think the value of a personal development teacher is teaching people at different layers of the onion with regard to this issue. Just like I can imagine, being somebody like Levi Rosman trying to teach the world chess. And I've learned a lot from him. I'm actually on his Chessly community. So, but like somebody who's an expert in something, you got to find, this is the thing about practical, about the finite. You got to find somebody who's truly an expert in something that you're trying to improve on. But you're not hitching your wagon entirely to that success, if that makes a kind of sense. Because you know who you are as a finite perspective and as an infinite perspective, and as to the marriage between those two things too. And, okay, if this doesn't sound cray-cray enough for you, here's another layer of cray-cray here. I think of myself as kind of a truck driver, you know what I'm saying? I try to have like a ordinary vocabulary, but oftentimes I'm talking about things that are way out there for certain people. For other people, it's just like they think they're smarter than me, and from their perspective, they absolutely are. All I can be is an influence for anybody else. But so I think there's a way to, I'll give you the thrust of it here. I think there's a way to still do self-help work, even if you're not strong in that. Like, in other words, like, you're not stage orange. You're not stage orange. You're not stage blue. You're not stage green. You're not stage red. You're not stage purple. You're not stage yellow. Like and you may say to yourself, and I know there's one person that I'm thinking of, hopefully she understands that I'm referencing something that she wrote in this. You may feel like a part of you has been lost. Like there's a part of you from the past that is no longer here. And you almost like mourn that part of yourself. Like, man, like, has all this spiritual stuff been just like a giant cope? And I look back to where I was in the past, and I'm almost nostalgic for that. Like, I want that again. I want that feeling of simple-minded, like, competition that I had when I was in high school, right? That simple-minded competition that I had when I was in my 20s, you know? Like there's a tendency to think, as people get older, they just get lazier, and then their ego takes over and they find a way to kind of backwards rationalize why they weren't able to do something. Like, I don't want people to like fit that narrative either. You know what I mean? Like, it's never too late to dabble in. This is what I would recommend. So I have 5 more minutes. So good. This is good. So I would say my recommendation for both me and for you, like getting back into the self-help stuff, the life coaching stuff, is now that you're entirely calm, you're at a serious advantage. And I would say treat it just like another project. So just like you might have reading Carl Jung, right, as a daily project, or playing chess as a daily project like I do. You know, I play at least one game of chess every day, if not like 3 or 4 games of chess every day. So, or playing a musical instrument like I do. I play trumpet, or following certain communities online that are doing the same work that you're doing. These are all things that you naturally do. Or meditation, right? That could just be, don't think that you have to do some ritual to do meditate. Like, you can get to the point where I could just sit here. I'm meditating while I'm making this video, actually. You know, my meditation, my mindfulness is so deep that it never goes away. And so what I want to say is, like, there's a way to take life coaching both too far and not far enough, or self-help both too far and not far enough. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to turn somebody away from something because you present it in such a way that just confuses them. But then you had no control over that, and that may actually be good for them, right? Like I know this is hard to stomach as an ego, but like somebody banning you from their community, like that may have been the best thing that ever happened to you, right? Like on some level you're thinking that, like, oh, somebody did this to me, or somebody cheated me. Maybe that was the best thing that happened to you, man, because once somebody cheated you, you went through all this kind of negative spiral, and then you learn something from that, right? You learn that, like, to expect human life to be pleasant all of the time is a huge illusion. The human is samsara. And, you know, I've gotten a lot of shit for saying that. People are like, well, that's egotistical spirituality. No, that's not egotistical spirituality. Even people who are talking about spirituality are egos. Because, you know, there's only one thing that's not an ego, and that's not anybody else. And that's not even you as an ego. So, like, fighting is like part of nature. It's chaos, right? That's not, like, if you're oversensitive to fighting, I think you need a kind of a reality check in that sense. Even if you have the money or the drugs or the social relations to try to avoid fighting, you're going to get in more fighting than you can. It's going to get over your head at some level. Why? Because you're going to die someday. That's the biggest fight that all of us face. The fight for continuing to exist ultimately gets taken away from us. It's like the greatest, like, refutation. Imagine, like, life is a game with a guaranteed checkmate. Right? So then, of course, you're going to have people that are going to criticize you for talking about life as a game. But all of these things, you know, they can be put together. And what I will do moving forward is try to integrate some of the self-help stuff back into my videos. But from, like, I would hope, like a higher consciousness perspective that's less like pushy, but more like, this is something that we just work on a little bit every day. Just like we would work on washing the dishes or brushing our teeth or something like that. Okay, friends, it doesn't have to be like brutally hard. It's like you can learn, you can go out and you can practice 30 minutes every day, as opposed to feeling like, if you're not Magnus Carlsen as a self-help practitioner or Tony Robbins or somebody like that, like, dude, that's their strength. You wouldn't be worried about this if it was a strength. So already you should be okay with just kind of being a gradualist, right, with regard to these things. But I think not focusing on this is a trap with people who are really too focused on the absolute stuff or even the marriage stuff, not divine marriage, but marriage with capital M. Anyway, that's my theory. But you can lose sight of like the root chakra, almost like the human. So there's a way to come back and bring it all back into the boat, right? So that it can all move forward as one. So, okay, friends, hopefully this wasn't too abstract or too concrete. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.